Hi everyone, let's talk about First Martians. So let's talk about some of the good things about it. So it's going for a really thematic feel with the stories in especially the campaign. It's got, as I said, it's got 6 missions, and they all fall into building, research, and something else categories, exploration categories, and there's some differences in them, but they are kind of, especially something like the make yourself at home campaign. It's trying to teach you parts of the game, and then in the campaign, it kind of leaves you to your own devices and makes you a lot weaker, and says, deal with that now. And without spoiling anything about the campaign, I've played through most of the first campaign, and it has got a lot of twists and turns and great story moments that you won't really find on the single missions themselves. But, in the campaign, and I'm sure, I haven't played the second campaign that comes with the game, but I'm sure that takes it even further, because there are definitely more elements to that without spoiling anything. The skills everybody gets are very situational. That mean that you need to pick your characters wisely depending on the mission that you're taking. Because, for example, in this mission where you need to build things and everything's going to be breaking, the engineer who can fix things for free, well, for 3 morale tokens, is really useful. And so they've got different skill sets with skill cards that will be applicable in different scenarios. So you need to choose wisely. Similarly with the automated things, they're quite a nice little extra to try and simulate having an extra player without you needing to put stress up or anything like that. As I said in the playthrough, I'm not really sure why solo players get to decide every round and 2 players have to decide one and keep one. I would have thought that playing solo is playing the 2-player mode. There isn't really a solo mode, but and that's fine. That's in loads of co-ops, but it should be really a variant. One should be the rule, and the other should be an easier or harder variant, to me anyway. But I could be missing something about that. It's all presented in a very nice visual style. It's all very consistent, and it's got this kind of, it's trying to have this very clean, clear, and but kind of a little bit sinister at the same time kind of vibe to it, and it all does its job very well. I would say the board itself is too busy, and I realise that as someone that will go on about how good Kanban is and games like that, talking about boards being busy, talk about those games first. But yeah, just the rigmarole of setting this up and putting all of these things in the right order and filling it up with all of the green cubes, only then to go through the setup and actually replace them with red cubes where necessary. It's a real pain. And maybe not so much if you were going to set this up and leave it out and play some campaigns or things like that. But when I need to play different games all the time and have to put this away after every game of it, it's a real pain. And I haven't got any suggestions. No, I'm just pointing out things I don't like without being able to suggest anything. But I'm not sure how you would do it better, mate. Because having a cube there to signify things are good is a good idea, rather than just having the absence of a cube mean that it's fine. It is good to see all of these indicators that green means everything is fine, red, as you might guess, things are going wrong. But it is a massive pain to us anyway. It's been a massive pain to set up, and it's not going to get any quicker, really. You just have to do that whenever you set the game up. So the game itself, as you probably know, is based on Robinson Crusoe, another game from Ignacy from years and years ago, and it's a very similar thing. Not the theme, obviously, but the structure of a round and the idea of you going on these things. You have 2 pawns, and you can send 1 to places, and you'll have to roll dice. You can send 2, and it'll be a sure thing. There were things in Robinson Crusoe like hunting, and you were trying to build up your shelter and things like that aren't really in this game. But this has its own unique things as well. It's put the round tracker on here, and the app, since the app has been updated and it lists every single step of these phases, it's a lot easier to go through, but it doesn't really feel any smoother than Robinson Crusoe was. There's a lot of stages and a lot of things to go through. It does end up being quite quick if a lot of the things don't apply, but if there are a ton of tokens out and a ton of things to count up the stress on and everything, it isn't really any smoother than Robinson Crusoe was. And we never played with the improved Robinson Crusoe, I should say, where they redid all of the rulebook. Ignacy and Paul Grogan, maybe more people, but at least them, went through the entire rulebook and every card and everything and redid it all and made it a lot better than we ever had an experience with Robinson Crusoe. But yeah, that hasn't really been streamlined anymore. So I would say your opinion of Robinson Crusoe is quite applicable if you've played that. And I didn't really like Robinson Crusoe that much at all, I have to say. Without going into it too much, I'll probably just put a link up to Rado's final thoughts for Robinson Crusoe and other co-op games like it. To paraphrase him as quickly as possible, there are co-ops like Pandemic where there's a nice ebb and flow. Things will look disastrous, you will try and work it out, and then you will have a little bit of breathing space, and then things are going to plummet again, and it's got this really nice kind of rhythm to it. Games like Robinson Crusoe or First Martians take the approach of just constantly barrage you with stuff, and if you get through, great, good luck, more power to you if you can manage your way through it, but I, as the game, I'm going to try my best to just throw everything at you constantly until you just can't take it anymore. And that is, not a bad thing. People love co-ops like that. Even back when I started, I wouldn't have thought I would end up with opinions like this, because I remember buying Arkham Horror way before I was into board games. Bought Arkham Horror, and one of the things I was trying to sell it to friends with, of like, oh, I've got this thing, let's play it. It says in the rulebook that they don't expect you to win, it's just how long can you last and all of this stuff. I used to really like that stuff. The more I've played and the more I've got into board games, the more I don't like it. And the more I don't like roll to resolve. And it's an optional thing, sure, in this game, but it is designed so that you have to use it eventually, because otherwise what would be the point of it? If I could just send 2 pawns to every action and win the game easily, what would be the point of this system? You have to make those choices of what do you need to happen and what do you want to risk rolling the dice on. Like, I probably should have risked less on the opening the shutdown tiles, but really, I feel like if I go there that many times and I just don't roll it, that's not my fault. That's I've done what I can and I lost. Okay, there's nothing I can do about that. So yeah, there's 2 types of co-ops, and I really don't like the just constantly barrage you with stuff, because for me it quickly, and for Rach as well, it quickly ends up of you just being, every time you press something on the app or draw a card, it's just a what now? We can't even cope with this stuff. All of this is barely enough for the pawns that we have and the actions available and the resources we've got and these rare spare parts that the game sometimes just takes away from you. It's just a feeling of just what now? Like, what is going on? There's something constantly breaking, or somebody's tripping over something, or somebody's deleted the family photos from the computer or something, and it just feels like, it all feels a bit Frank Spencer. Everything's just going wrong for, seemingly it's just us that are just constantly slipping over things and breaking panels and stuff. And it's just not for me. I don't really think that's a case of First Martians. As I said, I didn't really like Robinson Crusoe. We got rid of that a few years ago, and so yeah, you might say it's kind of, you should have expected this, which I did really. I was in 2 minds right up until it arriving. Really, I was kind of driven by the app, and as the game is, I am interested to see how games use that, and it does use it very well. It's very clean and simple to use the app. The story involved in the events and things seems not really there. It's a sentence at best to tell you what's going on and the event that's going to be hurting you. It's not really anything. The story, as I mentioned, there's a lot more going on in the campaign. There are events tied to things that are happening in the campaign, rather than just completely random things happening for no reason. And it's usually just a sentence. Some of the things are, you decided to watch Baywatch today or something like that. Just weird things sometimes. It's all just kind of a mishmash of random stories, and it didn't really. Before I'd played the campaign, I was really, really disappointed in the story in general. But as I said, it is in there. If you want to play the campaigns, then that's where you will find much better story things. The random events and adventures and things, I haven't really found anything that I really cared about in there. And that is a system I liked in Robinson Crusoe. I didn't like a lot about it, but I did like the, draw a card and you will have an event, and then depending on what you did, you might have to shuffle that card back into the deck, and when it gets drawn again, it's going to be something different, and the thing, the bear that you encountered earlier in the game is now going to be ravaging the island, and you're going to have to deal with it. I really like that. That's back in Robinson Crusoe, but instead of cards, it's all on the app. So in theory, that means they'll be able to add things to it and change things around. and just put more events and things in it. That's cool if they do that. I think it's more important to just do campaigns, just do more and more campaigns, because that's where the good stuff in the game is. I played through about 4 missions of the campaign. I think there's 6 missions in the campaign itself. During the 4th mission, I realised that I was just playing it to talk about it here, really. I wasn't enjoying it, and that's down to the game itself, not the campaign. The campaign is definitely the best part about First Martians, and if it had been any other game, I think I really would have enjoyed it more. I know that in the box, I didn't know this until the game arrived, the box has got envelopes in it. It's got sealed envelopes that tie into the second campaign. The first campaign is just a standard campaign of if you lose, you need to try again. The other campaign that I haven't tried is a Legacy one, and I love Legacy more than anything, and I was so excited when I first opened the box and saw that there were these envelopes in it, but yeah, playing through and just really not enjoying the game, I don't want to push through and persevere and play it more just to see what's in those envelopes. I'm sure it's fantastic stuff, and if you don't mind, the dice rolling and the general, beat you into submission vibe of certain co-ops, then it will be great for you. And I'm sure there are things in those envelopes that are utterly fantastic. But yeah, I just didn't want to have to keep playing just to find out what was in them. The other thing, I mentioned this in a bit in the playthrough as well, these shutdown tiles are probably my least favourite thing in the game. We have this storage of energy and oxygen, and if you have a surplus, they go up by half. I'm not sure why, maybe to just discourage you hoarding it, but these don't really do that much unless you have to spend it on things. If you run out of oxygen, you can't spend it from your storage or energy or anything like that. You have to shut down locations. And when you go there, you have to roll dice if you don't send 2 people there. And when you go there, it's like spend this many resource and then roll the malfunction dice and get a number over this. Now, these things aren't that bad because, as I said, a lot of the time you can have control over whether to roll these dice or not. And it's up to you. You've decided that you didn't need it that much and you can risk rolling the dice. Here you have to roll the dice and you have to get over that number, and you can't re-roll them with your, depending on what character you are. It's just complete, luck of the dice, and you could have spent a lot to go here and get nothing from it. I really, really don't like that mechanism at all. I have to mention the rulebook before the end, and while it's definitely not the worst, I feel like I've heard other people say these exact words. It's definitely not the worst, but it's not good. It's full of questions after reading it, and not only reading it, watching the Watch It Played video, which is 50 minutes long. No offense to Rodney at all, it's a fantastic video. There's just so many little things you need to know about this game that it's a huge rules video. And then watched John Gets Games playthrough and One Stop Co-op Shops video to try and get a sense of what's going on. And still, when I sat down, I had questions and had to look up the FAQs and things, and we were constantly looking up threads on Board Game Geek. It was a lot of work, and there is something, while it's not that bad a rulebook, it gives such a negative impression of the game when you sit down and after putting all that work in still have questions. It gives such a negative feeling to the game that I think that didn't help as well. But I will mention that, in addition to all of those people that I mentioned that I've got great First Martians videos, no pun included, I've got a great review as well where, to paraphrase a bit of them, there's a lot of good hiding in here, and if you're willing to put in the work and go through all of the rules and through the tutorial missions and get to the campaign and all of this stuff, if you're willing to put in all of that work, there is some great stuff lying in wait for you. And I found that from my plays of it, I'm not willing to put in any more work, and it's just not one for me, I'm afraid. But it could very well be one for you. Check out the playthrough or any of the other videos I mentioned for First Martians and decide for yourself. But that's First Martians. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye.